right. Good morning, everybody. Today's daf is Lamed Gimel. Pick up 2 lines from top. So the Mishnah from a couple of days ago, Mishnah was discussing the comparisons or differences between Dinei Mamonos and Dinei Nefashos. And Mishnah told us Dinei Mamonos machzirin bein l'schus bein l'chova. So for Dinei Mamonos, you can reverse the judgment, whether it is to change the verdict to be guilty or innocent, or chayav or pater. And by Dinei Nefashos, machzirin l'schus bein machzirin l'chova. But by Dinei Nefashos, by capital cases, we would only bring back and reverse the judgment in order to find in favor of the defendant. So the Gemara tells us, Urmenu, we have a machlokas. It seems from another Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah said that you can go ahead and reverse a monetary case, whether it is reversing it for chiyav or for a zakai. But we have the Mishnah Mechoros. The Mishnah says, Danas hadin, zikas achayav, chayav es hazakai, tima es hatar, tihar es hatame, mash asu vishal mi beso. So the Mishnah Mechoros, which we've had before, tells us that if a dayan makes an incorrect ruling, whether it is to make someone who was chayav to be innocent, or somebody who was innocent to be chayav, or something tamei, the dayan makes tahar, or vice versa. In all those cases, the Mishnah tells us what's done is done, and the dayan has to go ahead and pay or make the litigant whole from his own funds, right? And so we see from there, we obviously are not reversing. We're not reversing the judgment. Otherwise, he could just reverse the judgment. Why do we say the judgment stands and the dayan has to pay? So it seems to be in contradiction to what our Mishnah told us, that monetary cases are reversible. So we're going to have, over this next element, we're going to have a whole bunch of answers of differentiating between the two Mishnayos, our Mishnah here and the Mishnah in Bechoros. Amar Rav Yosef, first answer. Rav Yosef says, Lo kasha, kan b'mumcha, kan b'she'ena mumcha. No, these are talking about two different cases. Our case here in the Mishnah that says that the Dinei Mamonos are reversible, those cases are talking about a dayan who is a mumcha. And with the dayan who is a mumcha, the dayan, if you look at Rashi, it's 3 lines down from Rashi, yesh bo koach lachzor. So a dayan who's a mumcha does have the ability to reverse the judgment. Lo matzi lemeimar le baldin ana kitama kama didach adira. So with a judge who's a mumcha, the litigants can't come back and say, oh, well, I don't know if I trust your new judgment. Maybe your old judgment was the correct one. The mumcha has a certain authority to be able to say this judgment was incorrect and to reverse it. Right? Because otherwise, if it's a case of a non-mumcha, the litigant can say, well, how do I know that your ruling now is correct? If it's someone who doesn't have the proper knowledge, so maybe the litigant can say, well, I know you're reversing your judgment now, but maybe this is wrong and maybe the original one was right. I don't want to go ahead and abide by the reverse judgment. So Rav Yosef's answer is, in our Mishnah where it states that Dinei Mamonos is reversible, that's a case of a dayan mumcha that's judging. And in the Mishnah in Bechoros, which says that the judgment stands and the dayan has to go ahead and pay, that's talking about a judge who is not a mumcha. So Gemara asks, is it true that for a dayan who's mumcha, we do allow the judgment to be reversed? But if you look at the continuation of that Mishnah in Bechoros, the next line of the Mishnah says, that Mishnah in Bechoros, which told us that at first it said you have a case that was judged incorrectly, the judgment stands and the judge has to pay, but then it goes ahead and says, however, if the judge is a mumcha, he doesn't have to pay. But it doesn't state that the din could be reversed. So seemingly the judgment still cannot be reversed, but we do not force a dayan who's a mumcha to pay back the litigants for the mistake. So how can we now say the differentiation between the two Mishnayos is a dayan who's a mumcha? And clearly the Mishnah Bechoros is stating that even a dayan who's mumcha, he doesn't have to pay, but he still cannot reverse the judgment. So Rav Nachman clarifies the ruling a bit more. It says, no, kan sheish gadol hamenu b'chachma u'v'minyan, kan she'en gadol hamenu b'chachma u'v'minyan. So comes along Rav Nachman and says there's actually a second criteria. Is not only that you have a dayan who's mumcha, but you also have to have a beis din available in that city that is greater than that dayan that can go ahead and reverse or force the reverse of the judgment. So only when you have a case of a dayan who's a mumcha and a beis din that's greater that can reverse the judgment, that is when we allow for machzirin. Otherwise, the judgment stands, and if it is a dayan who's not a mumcha, they would have to repay the litigants or the litigant who had the adverse ruling against the incorrect ruling. And if it is dayan who's a mumcha, we do not reverse the judgment, but we do not force the dayan to pay. That is answer number one in the stira, our Mishnah versus the Mishnah in Bechoros. Answer number two. Rosh Hashanah says, Kan shata b'davar Mishnah, kan shata b'shekel hadas. So, and we've had this answer before. Rosh Hashanah says a judgment, even in a Dinei Mamonos case, is reversible, but it depends on what the mistake was. So, if the mistake is ta b'davar Mishnah, if it's a case where the dayan made a mistake in something that is a halacha straight from a Mishnah, that is going to be our Mishnah here in Sanhedrin. And in that case, if it's a established halacha from the Mishnah, then the judgment can and should be reversed. However, if you have a case where it is a mistake, the dayan made a mistake in a shikul hadas, which we'll explain what it is in a minute. If it's a mistake more in judgment, then that is not a reversible judgment, and that is the Mishnah in Bechoros. And instead, the dayan would have to pay and make the litigant whole. Why? Amar Rav Sheshes, and just on the same point, Amar Rav Sheshes, Amar Vasi, Ta b'davar Mishnah chozer, Ta b'shikul hadas, eino chozer. Right. So we have the same point. So Amar Ravina Rav Ashi. So Ravina says to Rav Ashi, trying to understand what does it mean to be Ta b'davar Mishnah. Says afilu ta b'Rabbi Chia v'Rab Oshia. So would this apply even if a dayan was toa in something that was discussed between Rav Chia and Rav Oshia? And if you look at Rashi is a few lines up when you go across, right by the end of the Bach. So afilu ta b'Rabbi Chia. So I davar Mishnah de kamar mi'amrina da afilu ta b'davar haMishnah. Right. So we know it includes something that's actually in the Mishnah, but b'Tosefta to be Rabbi Chia Rabbi Oshia, Shehem Sidra Tosefta Sitnu Ba Masha Sitnu Love Ikar. So what about if you have a dayan that makes a mistake in something that's in what we call the Tosefta? And why is the Tosefta? Why do we think that may be different? Because the law of Ikar, that Tosefta is not as authoritative as the Mishnah is. Krishnatenu Shestamo Rabbi, because Rabbi was the one who put together the Mishnah. Sheh Gadol Mehem V'Kol HaYeshiva Mitzuyat Tzlo Adeshu Nasi. So the reason why the Mishnah is more authoritative is because Rebbe put together the Mishnah, and Rebbe was the Nasi. Everybody was always around Rebbe, and he was able to hear all the Shaka V'Tarya, and then therefore that's why the Mishnah that Rebbe put together is more authoritative. So the question is, what about the Tosefta? Does that have the same weight in terms of being a judgment that should be reversed? So Moshe said, yeah, that is correct. That also would be a ta b'davar Mishnah. So with Rav Shmuel, what about if it was a ruling of the early Amaram of Rav Shmuel? So Moshe said, yeah, now that also would be categorized as a ta b'davar Mishnah and would be reversible. What about afilu b'didi b'didach? So Moshe says. So Rechia says, what about our rulings? What about rulings that we put forward the later Amaram? So Amalei, he said back to him, Atu Anan. He said, "What are you and I? Are we just reed cutters? Are we? We're a clash of people also. So no, our rulings also. If somebody goes against a ruling that we have made, that also would be a ta b'davar Mishnah and would be, that we put together, that would also be a ta b'davar Mishnah and would be reversible. So that is how we understand what a ta b'davar Mishnah is. What about hechi dami shikul hadas? What about a mistake in shikul hadas? What would categorize that? Amar Papa. If you're going trey tanai or trey amarai to pliya adade, let's say we have a case where we have two amarayim or two tanaim that are arguing with each other, and the Mishnah or the Gemara doesn't bring down specifically a halacha following one or the other. And this dayan went ahead and paskined like one of those tanaim or one of those amarayim. But But generally, the minhag of the olam was to hold by the other time. So it isn't a settled halacha that the dayan went against, but rather he basically went more with the minority opinion, or not the widely accepted opinion. So that is what we call a mistake, or tav shikol hadas, and that is the Mishnah in Bechoros, which we say that judgment is not reversible, and the judge would instead go ahead and have to pay. So Rav Menuna comes to ask a question, or Rav Shesh's answer. Remember, Rav Shesh's answer was that the difference between our Mishnayos, our Mishnah was talking about Ta'a b'davar Mishnah, and the Mishnah B'choros was talking about Ta'a b'shigla das. So it comes along Rav Menuna and asked, Maaseh b'para shenitla ha'eim shela v'hachila Rabbi Tarfon the club. So there was a case of a cow who had lost its uterus, and Rabbi Tarfon said it was a treifa, said that not having the uterus that means the animal is not sustainable. It's going to die within the 12 months. And so even though it's shechted properly, you cannot eat it because it is a treifa, and therefore it had to be, treifa, so it's fed to the dogs. But then the Chacham and Yavne got wind of this, and they disagreed with Rav Sheshes and said, no, that animal is not a treifa. Losing the uterus, not having a uterus, is not something that would make an animal a treifa, and actually that meat was kosher. Sha'amar, why? Sha'amar todas harofe ein para bechazir yotzes melexandria shemitzrayim el imkein chodchen ha'em shela kadesh lo tele. They quoted from the doctor todas harofe, the doctor, that these animals that they had in Alexandria, they had some very, high quality animals that they didn't want to reproduce outside of the city. And so anytime they were selling animals to people outside of the city, they would first remove the uterus. So this way the animal can't procreate and create more. So they are selling an animal, but they don't want that animal to go ahead and be able to replicate other animals of that stature outside of the city. And we see that obviously that must not have been something that would make an animal a treifa, or else they would have done that. They would have ruined the sale. So obviously the animal was still sustainable. It just could not reproduce. So we see from here that an animal not having a uterus is not something that would make an animal a treifa, and that is why the Rabbanim and Yavne ruled against Rav Sheshes. Ruled against Rabbi Tarfon. That's Rabbi Tarfon. I'm Rabbi Tarfon. So Rabbi Tarfon, when he heard this, he said, "Halcha chamorcha Tarfon." He said, "Tarfon, your donkey is now gone." Why? Rashi tells us that he's saying he's going to have to sell his donkey to now pay back because he incorrectly ruled on this case, and the animal was fed to the paro was fed to the dogs. He's going to have to go ahead and sell his donkey to be able to pay back that litigant who now lost out on their paro. So Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva comes to, sort of console Rabbi Tarfon, and he says to him, Paterata, no, Rabbi Tarfon, don't worry. You don't have to actually sell your donkey. You're pater from paying this case. Why? Shekol hamumcha l'rabin, or the back change it to the bezdin. Kol hamumcha lebezdin patum lishalin. Because you are a dayan who's a mumcha, you do not have to. Even though you ruled incorrectly, you do not have to pay. So now comes the question. And finally, the question from Rav Menuna on Rav Shesh's answer. V'inisa, and if you do hold that the way Rav Sheshes divided our Mishnahs, that it's Ta'ah b'davar Mishnah or Ta'ah b'shikol hadas. So then Isa, lemalei, Ta'ah b'davar Mishnah ata, Ta'ah b'davar Mishnah choser. If that actually is a distinction, that if it's something that is a mistake in a davar Mishnah, we do reverse the judgment. So why didn't Rabbi Akiva say to Rabbi Tarfon? Why is Rabbi Akiva telling Rabbi Tarfon he's a mumcha? Why isn't he telling the reason why you don't have to reverse the judgment is because this is a Ta'ah b'davar Mishnah. It's a mefurish Mishnah that an animal not having its uterus does not make the animal a treifa, and so that is the reason why Rabbi Tarfon is not going to lose out on anything, because you can just be machzir this din. So Gemara answers, no, what Rabbi Akiva was saying, it wasn't the only answer or the only reason Rabbi Tarfon wasn't going to have to pay, but he was just giving him one out of many reasons. Right? Like one reason why Rabbi Tarfon wouldn't have to pay is because this is a Ta'ah b'davar Mishnah, and we hold that those are reversible mistaken rulings. And furthermore, inami b'shikol hadas ta'isa, even if you were to say that this was a mistake in shikol hadas, still mumcha lebeizin ata v'kol mumcha beizin patur mishalim. you are a mumcha lebezdin, and anyone who is a mumcha lebezdin does not have to go ahead and pay for erroneous rulings. So that answers why this story of Rabbi Tarfon is not necessarily in contradiction to Rav Shesh's answer that differentiates between Ta'ah b'davar Mishnah and Ta'ah b'shikol hadas. So Amar Rav Nachman, Bar Yitzchak the Rav. So it comes along Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak and wants to understand this case a bit better, the case of Rabbi Tarfon. He said, Makamosi of Rav Hamnuna or Rav Shesh's. What was the whole question that was brought, that Rav Hamnuna brought on Rav Shesh's answer from this case of Rabbi Tarfon? Bipara, it was this case of Para. But Para, Hari Hechila Leklavim, Velesa Ditihader. What would even be the possibility of reversing the ruling in this case, or versus paying? This case, the Para was fed to the dogs. So how can what reversal of the rulings is even possible? You can't give him the Para back. The Para has already been fed to the dogs. So what is the potential to be machzir here in this case of Rabbi Tarfon? It seems like that ship has already sailed. So this is how you have to understand the question of Rav Hamnuna. If you say that it makes no difference, even if you have a case where it's a ta'ah b'davar mishnah, you cannot reverse the ruling. So then alma kamdina. Then I understand why this case of Rabbi Tarfon, which is not reversible. So that's why Rabbi Tarfon was afraid that he might have to go ahead and pay for the mistake. Right? Hainu de kamachzir Rabbi Tarfon amarle. And that's why he was afraid. Rabbi Tarfon was afraid. The Kamar Leiu and Rabbi Akiva said to him, and that's why Rabbi Akiva came along and consoled him by saying, you don't have to pay because you are a mumcha. But if you say Rav Sheshes, like you do, that in a case of ta'ah b'davar mishnah, we do reverse the ruling. So Leimalei, why don't Rabbi Akiva go ahead and say to Rabbi Tarfon, Kevan ilu have para dinach lavdina velo klom avadata. If this para would still be around, it hadn't been fed to the dogs, you could simply, Rabbi Tarfon, reverse your ruling and give the para back. So if that's the case, so ashtanami lo klum avadata. Here too, there's no difference. So it happened to be that the para was fed to the dogs, but it wasn't that Rabbi Tarfon physically went and fed it. He just made the ruling that it is a treifa, and from there, the litigant did what is usually done with a treifa and fed it to the dogs. But it wasn't Rabbi Tarfon who physically ruined this para by feeding it to the dogs. And so just because that happened, it doesn't mean the case is not reversible. And so we answer for what exactly the question was. But again, we go back to the answer that we gave for Rabbi Akiva, that it was chadavod. Rabbi Akiva was telling Rabbi Tarfon, not only do you not have to pay because you are a mumcha, but you also do not have to pay because this is a reversible ruling, because it is a ta'ah b'davar mishnah. That is answer number 2 for the stira, our Mishnah versus the Mishnah in Bechoros. Third answer. We are now about 6 lines down in the wide lines on Lamed Gimel. Rav Chizda Amar. Rav Chizda says, Kan shenatal v'nasan biyad, kan shelo natal v'nasan biyad. So Rav Chizda says, now the difference in the 2 cases, in our Mishnah, it is a case where the Dayan does not physically go ahead and enforce the ruling. But the case in Bechoros is where the Dayan goes ahead and physically has enforced his ruling and changed money, or move the money from one person to the other. And in that case, where the Dayan has physically gone ahead and actively done something, so in that case, those rulings are no longer reversible. That gives extra authority to the ruling because it was actually carried out and actively remedied. And in that case, we can't reverse, and instead the judge has to pay. But in our Mishnah, we're talking about a case where the ruling was made, but it wasn't actively enforced yet, and therefore the ruling can still be reversed. So now we'll look into that Mishnah of Bechoros a bit more closely. So Bishlama Chayves Hazakai. So I understand the case in another Mishnah where initially the erroneous ruling was somebody was Chayev. So then so okay, I understand. The judge said so-and-so is chayav, made them pay the money, that is actively enforcing the ruling. Fine. What is the case where the Dayan told somebody that was really chayav, told someone that they were pater, but actively enforced the ruling? What can you do to enforce that actively? You're saying he's pater, he does not have to do anything. So what is the enforcement there? So it must be to amarle paterata. It's because just by the Dayan saying it's pater, So the Gemara asks, but just saying it, that's words. That's not actively doing anything. So the Gemara says, no, Kaven the Amar Paterata, I mean, we view it as when you say Pater and now basically reinforce this litigant's claim to not pay the money, that is considered to be actively enforcing the ruling. And even in that case, that would be a case of actively enforcing the ruling, which would not be reversible. Okay, so if that's the case, Ella, now let's look back and how we understand our Mishnah. Ella masnisin dikatani dini mamanas machzirin bein l'schus bein l'chova. So in our Mishnah, which said that whether the reversal is for zechus or for chov, in either case you can reverse it. And we said that our Mishnah is specifically talking about a case where rulings were not yet actively enforced. So let's understand those cases. So bishlama l'schus mishkach lo amar le meikara chayavata. So I understand the case where he's trying to reverse it to be a zechus. So initially the Dayan must have said somebody was chayav, but had not yet enforced the ruling to have the money transferred. Okay, fine. I understand that case. Why would it still be reversible? How would we find a case in our Mishnah where the judge is now trying to reverse it, that it should be mechayev somebody, which means initially the judge said that the person was pater. So it must be right to amar like paterata. But for amar, cave into amar like paterata, commotion natal v'nasim biyadami. We just explained the Mishnah in Mechoros that if a Dayan rules that somebody is pater, that is in essence as if the judgment was actively enforced because you're reinforcing this person's hold on the money. So that can't be the case. If that's how we apply our Mishnah, then why is our Mishnah allowing us to reverse it? We shouldn't reverse in that case because there is already an active remedy that the judge had done. So rather, we have to understand our Mishnah as chadakatani. But really, our Mishnah is giving us two separate cases of reversing the ruling for zakai, not for chayav. Why? What's the second case? Is that you are reversing the case for zechus that happened to be a chova. Which means what? That it is a chov for somebody else. Because reversing the din and telling someone you said he was initially chayav and you're saying he's no longer chayav, we're pulling back the money from the other person. So even though now we're correcting the ruling, it's now a chiyuv to that other litigant because you're pulling the money back that was originally paid. So that's the case. That's the case in our Mishnah of the zechus. All right. So now we ask the kavase gabi nefashos. So now we have to have a parallel case because our Mishnah said juxtaposed the reversing of a monetary case versus a capital case. So what is the case? What's the capital case where it is a zechus shehichova, right? So the kavase gabi nefashos machzirin l'zechus amid beis ve'en machzir l'chova. So machzirin l'zechus gradita. So a regular case of zechus, I understand. That is just when it's zechus for one person and nothing for the other. Let's look at it. Rashi on the top says, she's zechus low. It's only a zechus for one party. Right? Let's say you have a case where someone just does an offense. It's not a ben adam l'chaver, it's a ben adam l'makom. So exonerating this person doesn't become a chova for anybody else. There's no second litigant. But what about the second part of the Mishnah, the ein machzir l'chova, that in a capital case we do not reverse rulings that are chov? That must be l'zechus shehi chova. It must be we are actually reversing it for zechus, but it's a chova to someone else. So Gemara says chavas deman. We're talking about a capital case. Who is the other litigant that is being hurt by this reversing of the ruling for zechus? So Gemara answers halakasha. It is a chova to the relatives of the deceased. Let's say we're talking about a case where it's a murder case, and the relatives of the deceased who don't want to see this guy go free. It's a chov to them having to see him walk out of Beis Din. That's the chov. It's really an emotional chov, not something, not a monetary or not something physical to them, but an emotional chov to them. So Gemara asks, really, mishum chovase de gol hadam katlina leilahai? Saying that seems to be very strange because we are saying we have evidence or the judgment was erroneous and we want to reverse the ruling to not kill this litigant, and we're not going to reverse the ruling because we might hurt the feelings of the deceased relatives. It doesn't seem to make sense. We should care more about killing somebody who's innocent rather than somebody's feelings of seeing them walk out of court. But another question: My bain bain. If you look at the wording of the Mishnah, the word of the Mishnah says bain this and bain that. It doesn't seem to be one case. It's really talking about two cases. So we don't like this answer that we gave of how to rectify the two Mishnayos. So kasha. So it seems that we have a legitimate question on Rav Shesh's, sorry, on Rav Chizda's, in Rav Chizda's answer. So Ravina comes along and he clarifies, because what was the problem? What was the problem we had? The reason why we couldn't say that the Mishnah in Bechoros was talking about in active when the judgment was already enforced was because we didn't have a case of Biyado when you have a Zika Esachaya. That was the problem, right? If the judgment was to be Mazaka, someone was to say somebody was innocent, how you have the active, and we were forced to say that just saying Patur is Biyado. And that's what got us into trouble. So Ravina says, no, I can give you a case that we can use in Bechoros. Kigon Shaylo Biyado Mashka. What's the case of Zika Esachaya where there was a mashkon in place? And so when the Dayan ruled that the person was patur, the mashkon was returned, and therefore that is a biyado. There's actually an active enforcement of the ruling. And now once we say that, we have no problem saying that the two Mishnahs are talking about different cases. The Mishnah Bechoros is talking about active cases, and the Mishnah in our Mishnah is talking about no active judgments have been made. So what about the other two cases? Because we've been talking about the Chayiv and the Zakai case in Bechoros, but Bechoros also talked about erroneous rulings of Tameh and Tar. So what are cases of active enforcements of those rulings? Timei Tahar, if a case where the judge made something Tameh that was really Tahar, the Agi Sheretz, where in order to show the correctness of his ruling that something was really Tameh, the judge touched that item to a Sheretz, therefore really making it Tameh. So even when it was found out that was really Tahar, now he actively enforced the Tumah ruling that he did. And what about the opposite? Tiyar Asa Tameh. What about if the judge had made something Tahar that was really Tameh? What's that case? She'irvan ben Perosav. That's a case where the judge took the item that he said was Tahar but was really Tameh and mixed it in with the person's other Tahar fruits, and now he's made everything Tameh because it turned out that his ruling was erroneous. We see both these cases where where the judge actively enforced the ruling, and that is the reason why it is not reversible. Okay, so those are the three answers of how we can answer for the stira between our Mishnah and the Mishnah in Bechoros. Next piece in our Mishnah talked about din nefashos, and it juxtaposed the reversing a din nefashos case, which is only reversible if you are going to be doing it for to make somebody innocent, but not to make someone guilty. So Gemara says, Tana Rabbanan, we're about 7 or 8 lines down from the top, and on the base. Tana Rabbanan, Minayin leyotze bezdin chayav. How do we know if a litigant walks out of Beis Din and is chayav, and somebody comes forward and says they have a reason for being melamed zechus for him? How do we know that we go ahead and we bring the case back and we try to reverse the ruling? Talmud Lomar naki al taharo. Right, the pasuk tells us naki v'tzadik al taharo kilot tzik rasha. So it's saying someone who's naki, someone who really is innocent, even though the judgment was that he's guilty, we don't want to kill him, right? And we talk about capital cases, so we bring him back. That's what we learned from the pasuk. So what about uminayin liyotzim beis din zakai? So what about the reverse? Somebody was adjudicated innocent, and another person comes along and says he has information to reverse it to make this person chayav. How do we know we do not bring that case back? Talmud Lomar tzadik al taharog. The pasuk also said "Naki b'tzadik al taharog." So someone who is Rashi says someone who is tzaddik, who is matzdik in din, who is not necessarily naki, he's not necessarily innocent, but he was matzdik, he was adjudicated to be righteous and to be innocent in Beis Din. We do not bring him back. So Amar of Simi Barashi adds v'chilufa l'meses, and the opposite is true. If we have somebody that coerces people to do avodah zarah, the opposite is true. We do not. In fact, we would bring him back to try to make him chayav, but we would not bring him back if he was already chayav in Beis Din to try to find innocence. We take a very strong approach. Tiksiv lo sachmol lo sechase alav. You should not pity him to bring him back if he is erroneously found guilty. Velo sechase alav, and you shouldn't cover up for him meaning if you have information, he's found innocent, you have information to make him guilty, you should not cover up for him, and rather we should bring him back to basic.
So what can we apply if you have the evidence he's innocent, don't bring him back, he may be actually innocent?
This is talking about a case if he's innocent and someone comes forward and says, I have information that he really is guilty,
But the
do you bring him back?
What about the opposite?
If he's found to be guilty, and now we're saying we have, so we take a very strong odds. Even though we don't True, but it goes against that pasuk is talking about a regular case. So for Masis, we have more serious. We don't. And you'll see Rav Kahana has different ruling, not from a svara, but he says Rav Kahana masni as another pasuk harog taharugenu. We have a double lashon of hariga by Masis, and which teaches us we have a lot of number of leniencies that we apply to other cases. We do not apply to a case of a Masis. Remember, we'll obviously hear evidence for him during the trial, but this is talking about when the trial's already done. We don't bring him back, so we don't apply that. Okay. So we now see from our Mishnah that for capital cases we reverse to find favor for someone. We do not reverse to find somebody chayiv if he was already pater in court. What about other cases that are not dinei mamnos and not dinei nefashos? So about chayiv galius minayin, how do we know what's the case by someone who would be chayiv galus who killed b'shogeg? Asi rotzeach. So we have xeris shava of rotzeach connecting it to capital cases. It says v'nas shama rotzeach by killing b'shogeg, and it says vayamas rotzeachu by capital cases. So we connect the two. What about chayiv malchus minayin? How about if somebody's chayiv malchus that we only reverse to find favor for him? Asi Russia. There's Shava also using the psukim connecting Russia. Tainam nami hachi. We have this in the brisa. Chayiv galius minayin asa rotzeach rotzeach. Chayiv malchus minayin asa Russia. Right. So we have those two xeros shavas. Right. Now we look at the next part of the flip side of capital cases that we do not bring him back for. We don't bring the case back to find someone to be chayav. Amar B'chia bar Abba, Amar B'Yochanan, Hu sheta b'davar she'ein hatzedukin modin. This rule that you do not bring a capital case back to find someone chayav only applies if the ta'as was something that the tzdukim are not modim to. What's that really? What are tzdukim? Tzdukim are only modim to the Torah Sheba'al Peh. So if it's something that's so clear that it's written in Torah Sheba'al Peh that was the mistake that was made, then aval tov adavar she'tzdukim modim bo, right? Something that's so clear that it's in Torah Shebasav. Then zil karibei ravu. That's something that's so simple. All the school children know it. The school children know the ruling. We're not going to allow that. That's not even considered a psak because it's just fully against what's written in the Torah. So okay, so I understand now if you're saying with this last ruling of a ta'ah, the davar she'tzdukim modim bo. What about a case? We talked about capital cases. What about a case of adultery? Would we bring back for a case of adultery? Where the Rashi tells us why. What's behind this question? What's the difference? So Rashi, it is about 5 lines before Rashi gets wide. Do we say that we would bring back for chiyuv by a case of adultery? Why? I understand the case of murder. There are plenty of different things where the judge could have made his erroneous ruling. There are a lot of factors that go into it, right? Do we say could go into Omer Evan Shahargoba Lohebogte Misa? There's a couple of things. Did the weapon? What was the blow hard enough? Was the weapon hard enough? There's a lot of factors whether someone is actually chayav misa, whether it's considered to be murder. However, if we look at the end of the Rashi, a case of adultery is pretty clear. There aren't a lot of factors that go in whether adultery did or didn't take place. It either did or it didn't. So is that considered something that's so clear that we would bring back to reverse because there's not a lot of weighing of the evidence? It either happened or it didn't happen. So Rabbi Yochanan said back to Rabbi Chia bar Abba. He said, while your fire is burning, go ahead and cook your gourds. And Rashi tells us, what does that mean? once you're learning you're learning Torah, you're already learning the sugya. Tain lev lahabin al-hosef lekach. Hare shamas mimeni. You heard, right? Continue your learning. You heard from me you just heard from me that said we just said anything that's a mefurish in a Torah shebachsav that the Stukim would not get wrong, we would bring that case back to reverse. And a case of adultery is something that is clearly written in the Torah, and so we would bring that back and reverse the case. So how can we find a case? Sorry, I'm back in the Gemara now, about 6 lines up. How can we find a case of adultery where you are not choser, where it's not a clear-cut case? Where they made a mistake when it was via shelo kedarka, which is not learned out directly from the Sukkim, but rather it is Torah Sheval Peh, so it's not something that Sadukim would rule in favor of, and therefore that is a case that would be irreversible. We would not bring that case of adultery back to the court. Okay, next part in our Mishnah. Mishnah stated, Dine Mamonos, Hakom Landum Schus, V'chova. So in a case of Dine Mamonos, if we have monetary cases, anyone who's sitting in the courtroom can come ahead and be Melamed Schus or Chova for one of the litigants. So Gemara asks, Hakol V'afilo Edim. When we say Hakol, everybody, does that means even the Edim? If an aid who testified against this person, can he now go ahead and start being Melamed Schus, be towing for that litigant as well? If that's the case, Nema Mas Nisan, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, below Rabbanan, we'd have to say then that our Mishnah is holding like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and not like the Rabbanan. The Tanya, we learned in Brisa, the Eid Echad lo Ya'anev Nefesh. Pasuk says Eid Echad cannot be towing. Bein l'schus, bein l'chova. The Chachamim say, the Rabbanan say, that is whether the aid is coming to be Melamed Schus or to be Melamed Chova. The aid cannot go ahead and continue to be towing for anyone. He gives his aidus and that's it. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says no. An aid can come forth and be towing in order to be mezakeh the person, but cannot be towing for a chiyuv. So if we say that Hakol in our Mishnah comes to include even the aidim, so we must say our Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Our Papa says no. The echad min hatamidim v'divrei kol. No. What it's talking about Hakol is not coming to include the aid. The aid cannot be towing, but it's coming to include the Talmidim that are sitting around. If they have something to say, they can go ahead and be towing on behalf of the litigant. So now we want to find out what's the reason behind the machlokas of Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and the Rabbanan. My time is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, top of Lamed Daled. That's what the pasuk says. The Eid Echad cannot be towing for someone's life. Lamos hu de'eno ona avalus chus ona. He can only not do it if he's going to be mechayev him lamos for a capital case, but he can do it if it's going to be a case of if he's coming forth to give testimony of suchus, even though it's counteracting what his testimony they gave. Because again, he was an aid coming to try to be mechayev somebody. Rabbanan. So what about Rabbanan? Why do they say that an aid cannot come and be towing for somebody regardless? It seems that they are being pogeh, their aidim are being pogeh, their aidus. What does that mean? Look at the top Rashi, at the end of that first line. That it seems like the aid actually they're having charata. They want to take back their aidus. They're afraid this case is going to go all the way. They're going to judge and be mechayev the guy, and then Eidim Zom are going to come, and these Eidim will be in trouble. But they can't go ahead and just simply retract their aid just because we have a principle. It's after Toch Dibur. What's done is done. The aidus is already given. So with the aid, we're afraid, the Rabbanan are afraid that if we let the aid towing for zechus for this person, he's trying to contradict his own aidus and save himself. We don't want to have that appearance, so we don't let him do it. So Gemara continues, Rabbanan Hai Lamos my Darish Pei. What do they do then with the rest of that pasuk? Because the pasuk said Eid Echad Lo Yana Benefesh Lamos. So what do the Rabbanan do? Mukmilei Be'echad Ben Tamidim. So they say no. The Lamos part is talking about Echad Ben Tamidim, because one of the Tamidim can only come forth if they're being towing lezechus for somebody, but not if they're towing lechova. Kitatanya, we learned straight out in Brisa. Amar echad min ha'edim yeshni lamed elav zechus minayin she'ein shomen lo. Let's say one of the edim says, "Hey, I have more things to add that would be mezaka this person." How do we know we do not allow those edim to continue to testify? Tam lomar eid echad lo yana. Right, we take the first part of the pasuk that an eid echad cannot be towing regardless, whether it's for zechus or chova. What about minayin le'echad min ha'tamidim she'amar yeshni lamed elav chova minayin she'ein shomen lo? What about then if you have one of the tamidim that is going to go ahead and wants to bring forward, more evidence and be towing that this person should be chay, even though the judgment was made that he is patur or he's innocent. So how do we know? She'ein shomen lo tamid lomar echad lo yana b'nefesh lamas. Or break up the pasuk a little differently. Take out the 8 part and just say echad lo yana b'nefesh lamas. A person is not allowed to be towing to kill this person after the judgment is realized. So it's only that he cannot bring forward evidence that is l'chiyuv, but he could bring back if he was going to try to exonerate him.